2 Resurrected is coming out in September, and it's the long-awaited remastered version of Diablo 2, but it looks like it's going to have some amazing accessibility features. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Steve Saylor, I'm blind, and if you're wondering how I'm able to play video games if I'm blind, if you take a look at the video here, and the video is not there, click the link in the description down below to see exactly what I see when I'm playing video games. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can see new videos from me, and hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified too. So yes, Blizzard Entertainment announced a little while ago that Diablo 2 was going to be remastered, but it looks like it's going to have a bit of a cross between a remastered and a remake to a certain degree. There's a lot of work that's going into this remastered version, including a lot of accessibility that was not in the original. So let's talk about it. So there actually was a news post that Blizzard actually posted just yesterday, I believe. Yeah, July 20th. So how we're making Diablo 2 Resurrected more accessible to everyone. And there was this is a long article, so I'll leave a link in the description to be able to read the full article, but there was some highlights that I wanted to talk about. They actually did mention in a previous blog post, like there was a technical alpha learning. So they had a technical alpha for players to be able to give feedback on, and they included a small tidbit of accessibility under quality of life, where they actually said here for accessibility, from auto-go pickup, larger font modes, UI scaling for PC players, and gamma/contrast settings to enhance readability, we've taken strides to equip players with customization options to suit their needs. With these options, players may tweak the visibility of their HUD and graphics, finding the ideal balance between beautiful and gritty, or whatever their preference may be. We'll be touching on our efforts to make Diablo 2 Resurrected more accessible in later, more detailed blog post, which is what the article from yesterday is that post. Now, we had heard about that this game actually was going to be accessible, because shortly after they announced it, there was an article, there was an interview that was done where a developer was talking about the fact that they are going to try to be able to make this as accessible as possible, which was good news for us in the accessibility community, because these kind of games or these kind of remasters don't always get an accessibility upgrade or accessibility options added into a game, mostly because of people are kind of more like the purists of the game. They kind of want the game to be exactly how it was, just running on modern graphics and just looks prettier, which is fine. But if you're trying to be able to make a new version of the game, why not try to be able to go in, if you have the time and the resources, go in and be able to try to make them accessible so that you can be able to attract new players as well, especially those with disabilities. So this blog post is a very long blog post, and I'll link to it in the description down below. But there were some highlights I wanted to be able to highlight here, pun intended, in this article that I want to be able to touch on. So first off, they talk about in their philosophy of making Diablo 2 remastered or resurrected. The highlight I have here is our team includes many D2 purists who have thousands upon thousands of hours in the game before working on it professionally, and our goal is not to break what isn't broken. One thing we agree on is that it doesn't matter how pretty the grass is, if you can't see the legendary staff on the ground, it ultimately sabotages the core gameplay experience. Accessibility is one major area of opportunity for this remaster to shine, and our intention is to bring games to more players, has evolved and is more refined now than ever before. And this is huge, because a lot of times when, like I mentioned, whenever you talk about a remaster of a beloved game like Diablo 2, a lot of purists who remember an exact specific experience when playing that game originally want the same experience again, and they are purists. They want to be able to play the exact game that they remembered with the exact emotion that they remembered, and and they're upset that developers or studios will want to be able to go in there and tweak things. Why would you want to tweak things? It's just going to make it like different, and it's going to make it impossible for me to want to be able to play. There's a whole gatekeeping aspect to it that I'm just not necessarily a fan of. And this statement in their philosophy is something that I'm very, very happy about. Even though they have purists on staff that have played this for thousands and thousands of hours, one thing they all agree on is, hey, let's make this accessible so that new players can be able to join in the fun. And that's exactly what they're doing here with Diablo 2 Resurrected. So I'm very happy that they were able to basically say, this, that like, you know what, it doesn't matter that there are purists on this team that want accessibility too, and that is super important, and I love that. Moving on, in regards to quality of life opportunities, they did mention in regards to actually the ability to be able to excuse me, I have coffee mouth today. It's hard for me to be able to speak. But they have in regards to basically rebinding, in regards to auto gold pickup. Which was something they mentioned in the technical alpha's learnings, but that is actually something that from previous players that they've had to constantly be clicking on, be able to pick up gold whenever they find it in the world. So the highlight I have here is actually our initial inspiration for this feature's implementation was for controller players to not need to click as much, but we were pleasantly surprised to see mouse and keyboard players with limited mobility in their hands really enjoy this feature during the technical alpha. If a player with a disability or hand injury was looting in Diablo II Resurrected, this option could alleviate physical stress without compromising the core gameplay experience. While we implemented this option with one type of player in mind, we ended up benefiting countless other players by giving them a quality of life option they can choose to enable when they configure their personal Diablo II experience. This exhibits the solve for one, extend to many principle, leading to a greater impact throughout the player community. There's two things I want to bring from this, because this is a very packed full paragraph here, just in regards to auto gold pickup, but it really extends the philosophy of accessibility and why it's super important. So the one thing that they mentioned in here, where can we build? While we implemented this option with one type of player in mind, we ended up benefiting countless other players by giving them a quality of life option. And the second is this exhibits the solve for one, extend to many. You know how often that phrase, solve for one, extend to many, has been mentioned in the accessibility community? So like, it's like, generally, it's usually not said like all the time outside of that, because, and I've heard many times in talks and in regards to accessibility, this phrase specifically, this exact phrase, and the fact that Blizzard either heard that or someone was at a talk that listened to this and in regards to accessibility and was like, yes, this needs to be part of our philosophy. That means that they get it. That means they get accessibility. They 100% are in, and the fact that they are using the right philosophy and language around this is so huge. And again, while we implemented this option with one type of player in mind, we ended up with benefiting countless other players by giving the quality of life option. That is huge as well, and that's something that not a lot of people, like, I talk about a lot in regards to accessibility, but it again, coffee mouth. What really is great about accessibility is that, yes, there are options that will help those with disabilities. However, those options can benefit so many other people as well, and it's just not totally locked into accessibility only, and that is great. That's what I love to be able to see in this. And again, it just, even though they're talking about just auto gold pickup, like, just the fact that there's like, it's auto gold that they're talking about, and yet there's so much that feels like that they understand accessibility from the ground up. That is just so much in this one particular feature that you can tell that there's a lot of care put into the accessibility of this. Oh, I'm gonna take a drink of coffee. So yeah, all right, let's moving on, because I could go on this for hours. But another thing they mentioned in here is regards to actually. There was something that happens when you're playing the game, in that when you're basically swinging your sword against an enemy, and it looks like that you hit them, but in reality they're not. They actually were able to add in a new sort of a kind of alert or something, basically notification whether you missed, and that's actually in this sort of animated GIF here, where you're swinging and a little miss icon will come up. Basically, players may not want to be able to have this, and you can be able to turn it off, but it's just a nice additional option to be able to kind of help let you know whether a player, you missed an attack or not. And this is great also for those deaf and hard of hearing, because even though there is an audio cue that will tell you if you missed, the fact that there's going to be text on screen to tell you if you missed is great as well. Another thing, so they mentioned in regards to key bindings. Another key piece of accessibility is key bindings. Allowing players to set their station fully is critical. Our control scheme for controllers allows for heavy amounts of modification, and we support a long list of bindable actions for the mouse and keyboard. We provide 12 bindable keys and allow all action skills to be assigned in any way the player desires. To support this, we've even created new bindable neutral skills like Interact, allowing for complete customization. Diablo 2 is primarily a game about picking up and holding items and persistently clicking. We know that prolonged holds and repetitive actions can be a significant barrier for some players, so we've added quality of life features to help mitigate the fatigue caused by many of these actions. For example, now players can toggle actions such as viewing items on the ground to be a click versus on hold. Now that's a long statement to be able to say, but essentially the fact that they are taking key bindings and remapping to a very finite level where you can be able to like fully customize how you want it, whether you're on mouse and keyboard or on controller, is huge. And the fact that they're adding holds and toggles to repetitive button presses is great. It is going to be such a, and I love that they're calling it quality of life improvements, because yes, technically a lot of this would be considered accessibility, but the fact that they're calling it quality of life, that just basically means that they are taking this game as a whole and improving on literally the quality of life of the game, just to be able to make it more customizable and allows a player to be able to fully create their own Diablo 2 experience. This is huge. Again, goes back to sort of the language, the specific language they are using in talking about accessibility is great, and I love to be you love to see it. Moving on, this improvement presents the need to keep pressure on a button. This is about holds and toggles. To keep pressure on a button for a prolonged time after the technical alpha, this change alone is a massive win to users who shared their testing feedback and were happy we were able to hit it. We also allow many controller abilities to continuously trigger if the button is held down for players who can't repeatedly tap buttons quickly. This is also huge because that's actually something that I have not really seen in regards to like whenever you have a hold, is that will continuously, you can continuously trigger a button to be able to kind of like hit repeated actions, which could actually be really, really beneficial in this kind of a game. So that yes, even though you can be able to set if a hold kind of is difficult for you, you can be able to set it to a toggle, that's great. But the fact that if you are comfortable with a hold and you just don't want to keep rapidly tapping a button either on a keyboard or on a mouse or on a controller, the fact that they can just sort of set to continuously trigger every time you hold that button is great, and you love to see it as it were. Now in regards to audio accessibility, they actually are saying in the options menu, players can adjust the volume levels of a multitude of audio channels. These sliders allow you to adjust the audio levels of voices, UI cues, footsteps, monster hit impacts, weapon noises, ambient objects, combat gore, and so much more. We have not seen a game that that looks like it's going to have this many audio sliders for specific sound effects and specific UI elements. That you can fully customize your audio experience in this, and this is huge. And again, moving on, they actually say with the options we provide, we hope that players attune their audio to their play style, including situational accessibility needs. More on that in a second. Perhaps if you're streaming or your baby is asleep in the other room, you can now enable or disable audio to ensure you're getting the proper feedback at the level you want. Now you may be confused. What is situational accessibility needs? That's a very good question, and thank you for asking. Well, let me talk about that. Actually, I'm going to switch to the main camera so you can be able to see. So there are three different types of accessibility needs. There is permanent, temporary, and situational. Permanent means it's someone that has a permanent lifelong disability, someone like myself that is blind and has been blind since that, whether from a particular point in their life forward or from birth, someone that basically that this is what you're going to have for life, essentially, and that is kind of considered a permanent disability. There's temporary disabilities where, say, you break an arm or you dislocate your shoulder, you break your hand, stuff like that essentially will heal over time. But essentially, like when you are trying to be able to do something with that you need a certain accessibility needs for, that sort of those accessibility needs would benefit those with temporary accessibility. And then there's situational accessibility, which is exactly what they mention here in this article in regards to if you're streaming or your baby is asleep in the other room. Those are situations that happen in a particular like environment, such as if you have a baby that's right beside you that you want to be able to, you finally put the baby down to sleep. You just want to be able to play a game, but you don't want to disturb the baby. You can turn, like, the fact that you can be able to enable accessibility options to be able to turn those options off that you need to, especially for audio, so that way you can be able to play the game and enjoy it without having to basically disturb your sleeping child beside you, or other options or other things like that. Basically, whether you're streaming, you want to be able to turn certain things off, and or just anything that revolves around like a situation where you can't be able to hear certain things, so you have to turn up the subtitles. Or if you're playing on the cloud and playing on your phone, the ability to be able to increase the font size. That's something that's a situational accessibility need, and that is something that I love to be able to see. And the fact that they are using this very specific wording, situational accessibility needs, again, it goes back to the language that they're using is so important, and they get it. They 100% get it. All right, long rant, but let's move on. And then lastly, so they also mentioned here, between text-to-speech and screen reader support, or adding a controller configurations to allow players to predominantly play with one hand to swap their analog stick controls interchangeably. As a community, we will continue to evaluate areas to improve. We are grateful to those players for identifying challenges that would hinder their experience or make the game less enjoyable, and several of the options highlighted above were inspired by and implemented because of their valuable insights. Why did I mention that? Yes, obviously text-to-speech and screen reader support is huge. Adding controller configuration to allow players to play with one hand to swap their analog stick controls is great. But again, it's just this last little bit here is that make their game less enjoyable. And several of the options highlighted above were inspired by and implemented because of their valuable insights. This means that this goes to show that a lot of, like, it seems like they learned a lot from the technical alpha, from player feedback. Player feedback is so important, is such an important part of the accessibility journey. It's such an important part of why accessibility can succeed at a studio. Yes, having executives on board from the very beginning and building accessible design is huge. Having consultants like myself to be able to come in to be able to provide direct feedback and are paid for their time for that. But then also the third element of that is having player feedback basically help sort of provide that feedback that you may, as a developer, you may not have noticed, or you probably had skipped over and you weren't sure about. And the fact that you're able to get these answers to your questions from player feedback is also huge. Those are three huge pillars to be able to increase accessibility in your game. And the fact that Diablo 2 and Blizzard, the Blizzard team are doing that is great. I know this is a very long video already. I apologize. But I just wanted to be able to highlight so many cool things that were from just this one article. And in conclusion, I am now very, very excited to be able to play Diablo 2 Resurrected. I have not played a Diablo 2 game before because of the very reasons why they're adding accessibility now. They're adding accessibility that's going to help not only players like disabled players, but it's going to be able to help me. And that's something that I want. I want to be able to play this game, and the fact that I can be able to increase font size and increase and rescale the UI. Yes, it means I'm gonna have to play this on PC. I'm fine with that, but I will play it on PC because of that fact that I can be able to customize my experience to help me play this game that so many people love. In a way, it feels like that they are creating these options for me, and that is such an amazing feeling, and that just makes me so excited. And that's why I'm making this video, because I am now a fan. I am now a fan of what Blizzard is doing with this and what the team of Diablo 2 is working on for this resurrected version. I can't wait, and I am excited. So that being said, make sure you be able to take a look at the article. Like I said, I linked to it in the description down below. But then also make sure you be able to check this game out on September 23rd. I'm hoping to be able to get a review copy so I can be able to review it for you all. But this is just such a great. I'm more excited for this game than I was before, and I can't wait. I legitimately can't wait. All right, that's it for me. If you like this video, click the like button. If you want to see more of my videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified too. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next video. And as always, I remain obedient to yours. Bye.